Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hans, and I am running for political office here in Texas. My goal is not to win. I'd like to become the governor, but that's not because I actually want to govern anyone. It's the opposite. It's because I feel that the government that we have is an ancient and barbaric institution that doesn't treat anyone correctly, not even the governor. And so the goal is actually to create a new government. It's not for me to be the leader of the government, although I think I'd do a great job and I would volunteer my services for that role. But the goal is always to make absolutely certain that everyone gets treated right at all times. And we have a system called capitalism, which was designed by some very smart people a long time ago. And it was genius because the whole purpose of capitalism is that if you work for something, you deserve to be able to keep that thing, right? And so it creates this system where people have stability, right? If you work hard, you get to keep what you earn. The problem with capitalism, though, right, is it doesn't have a good way to address what do we do when people are stupid, right? I mean, I'm being absolutely honest here. Like, capitalism works if you're smart. Some people are not smart. Their parents didn't teach them well. Maybe they have mental health issues. Maybe they have stress, trauma. They don't know what to do, and they're not very smart. So capitalism says, well, if you're smart, you get everything. But if you're not smart, right, you have to work at the grocery store. And you have to do what you're told, right? And the reason why is because in capitalism, you get the size of house based on how smart you are, right? How much money you can make. And so smartness isn't really the right determinant for why people should be able to get treated either good or bad. People should be able to get treated good or bad on the basis of character, right? But unfortunately, it's not on the basis of character. It's on the basis of how intelligent you are and how well you can manipulate, honestly, finance, right? Really and truly, the goal in all capitalistic systems is not productivity, but rather the manipulation of the monetary system. And that's a problem, right? Usually, if you help people, it is easier to manipulate money. So a lot of people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk will start a big business, right? And they'll succeed. But there are massive businesses that don't actually do anything for anyone. They are simply finance businesses, right? Every single bank literally just sits there and has all these employees that are literally doing nothing to further the human race, except distribute capital and finance, right? And there's a reason that they have to do that in capitalism, right? Because you have to keep score. That's the purpose of capitalism. We will all keep score. Whoever scores the most gets what they want, right? And you can play dirty. It usually works better if you play a little bit dirty, right? You got to donate to the politician, right? I think Trump was famous for saying you got to donate to the person who's going to win, right? And that's the problem with capitalism. It's the truth, right? Donald was telling us the facts of the situation. Why did you give Hillary money? Well, Hillary was going to win, so I needed Hillary to know that I was her number one supporter, right? And so the goal of capitalism, right, is to survive. And the idea is if we all just work hard, we'll be able to survive as long as you don't steal from each other. But the problem with capitalism is that it has what's called money. Money causes the problems with capitalism because the means by which we keep score is a problem. Because there are people who are bankers, right, who don't actually do anything for anybody, but they make a ridiculous amount of money off just managing people's money, right? The reason why I'm singling out bankers in particular is because it's literally a profession that doesn't do anything for anyone. The only thing that they do is they help to keep score, right? And the scorekeeper doesn't matter. What matters is building houses. What matters is building cars, right? What matters is infrastructure. What matters is doctors, right? What matters is people actually helping people. Money doesn't actually matter, right? The only reason it matters is because we have a government that says, well, if you don't have legal title to this land, you can't sleep on it, right? That's a problem. Because if that land is not being used by anyone for any reason, you're doing a good thing by finding unused land and putting it to use, right? You're putting your body in it and maybe farming it. Capitalism can't deal with efficiency. Capitalism is intrinsically extremely inefficient because it requires a scorekeeper in every situation. For example, you want a transfer title, you have to go get a title company, you have to have attorneys fight over it, right? But imagine you have a healthy economy where people use land not because they want to own it and buy it as an investment so nobody else can use it because we bought it, right? Imagine a system where people use land because it's necessary, right? And so if we have a better system economically, then what will happen is we'll cut out vast swaths of the economy, right? All CPAs will essentially reskill, and they will actually do something to help people, right? Right now, all of us are busy paying their salary. We're putting them in fancy houses, putting them on airplanes, giving them money, getting their wife a new hairdo. We're spending all this money on the CPA, and what is the CPA giving back? He doesn't do anything for any of us. Like, his literal sole purpose is to keep score. The same goes for a whole class of attorneys, and these are extremely high-paid people. And the worst of all is the chief executive officer. The chief executive officer is jetting around on the most expensive private jets, spending hundreds of millions of dollars, getting, the latest and greatest, yacht and whatever. And what has he done for anyone in the past 6 months? Well, he told everyone else what to do, but did he actually do anything? He didn't, right? Why does that happen? It's all the system of ownership, okay? Corporate law, ownership. Every time you have a system of ownership, what always happens is there becomes a class of people who specializes not in taking care of others, but instead in manipulating the system of ownership so that they can become wealthy. Now, the goal of wealth, I'm going to tell you this, is so that other people will take care of you if you can't take care of yourself. And so we don't hate on the CEO because we would all like to have a guarantee that someone will take care of me in the future. But that is not the correct way to get that guarantee, because wealth is very fleeting. You make a lot of money, somebody else wants it, they'll take it. We need to have a system where all of us are committed to taking care of one another on a daily basis. There's no free lunch, and I mean that. There's no way that I can just, as a man, go out and be like, you know what, I'm going to take care of everyone on the planet by passing a new law. A new law can't fix it. What has to happen is people have to actually do something every single day. Now, I guess you could believe in miracles, right? The children of Israel ate manna every day. And I do believe in Jesus. And that's a large part of this video. Jesus actually told people, stop working for food. He said, spend your time trying to find God and learning about what does his son think, which is a really weird thing, right? But I do believe that God is involved. And I think that what he was trying to say is people have spent enough time working for food that there's enough food out there for everyone. There's enough land, and we know how to use farming tools to make sure we have food to eat. But the problem is we have bad character, right? Our hearts aren't in the right place. I think what he was saying was not that it's wrong to farm. I think what he was saying is that the social issues of the day are so extreme that if you want to be a truly good person, you don't become a good person by creating more food. Because the problem is not a lack of food. I think what he was saying is that the problem is how we treat one another. How do we interact with one another? How do we take care of each other, right? That the problems that we had of, gosh, I'm hungry, are not anywhere as substantial as the problems that we have of, gosh, this person hurt me, right? And so I think what he said was humanity has gotten to the point where working for survival is not logical anymore, because survival is already easy enough. What we are to work on is to learn to love one another. And I mean that. And that's what this political campaign is for. And there have been countless efforts by people like Joseph Stalin and Mao, I can't remember his last name, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce it. But countless efforts by leaders of many countries who have said, we are going to use force and we're going to take things from people. And that's the exact opposite of what this campaign intends to do. Instead, we're not going to take anything from anyone. What we're going to actually do is the opposite. We're going to allow the state to finally relax for the first time. We're not going to go in and play good cop, bad cop. We're not going to go destroy people's lives because they were homeless. Everything that we do, we're going to do the golden rule, right? I hate to say this, guys, but the problem with capitalism is it assumes that everyone is equally intelligent. And saying, listen, there's equal opportunity, fine, there's equal opportunity, but the truth is, if you're Usain Bolt, the fastest man alive, he did not have equal opportunity compared to the average one of us. Just because of the way his body is built, like he's taller than other people. He's naturally skinny, but he has good muscle composition. Like, his body gives him an unfair advantage, and that's what capitalism is. Capitalism says, well, I just so happen to have genetic traits that make me smarter than the average person. I'll sit around and fly private because I already knew what this guy needed to do. I knew what this guy needed to do. I told him to do it, but I outsmarted him. I got him to sign this paperwork. They signed the paperwork. They got a meal. but at the end of the day, I made millions of dollars off it, right? Because I put them together. And that's a problem because it's discriminating against people literally on the basis of how smart you are, which is an issue. And I know we're not used to saying it's bad to discriminate against people on the basis of intelligence, but at the end of the day, a human is a human. Should you be treated better when you exerted equal effort, simply because, you were genetically better than the other person at a certain task that happened to matter in that generation? And what I mean by that is this: in our generation, what matters is your people skills, right? Are you able to manipulate people or love people, right? There was a time when being the fastest person, may have meant that, you're the only one that escapes from the animal, right? I mean, it's unlikely because, humans usually don't escape, right? But the idea is, as they say, right, it's not about running fast. It's not about running faster than the bear, right? They say it's, about running faster than your friend. And so, there was a time when, being able to run faster than your friend meant that maybe you live and maybe your friend doesn't. But in the modern day, it's about your people skills. Are your people skills better than everybody else's? And if your people skills are, right, then you're going to be riding first class and everybody else is going to be riding behind you, right? Because, there's not enough to go around for all of us to be riding first class on every flight, because at the end of the day, there are limits and constraints on how much oil and gas we know how to drill out efficiently. And so when we're dealing with a system where people get treated better or worse on the basis of how smart they are, it's going to be really hard for me to go to war against that system, because that would mean that I was going to war against the smart people, which sounds incredibly idiotic and stupid. Really, the smart thing to do is not to go to war against them, but instead to work with the smart people to do something even smarter, which competition, believe it or not, it is our favorite thing in America. We're like, we need more competition. But it's not competition that is actually the thing that we love. It is freedom that we love. Freedom comes when the government says, we're going to make sure that nobody is allowed to hurt you, steal from you, and kill you. And that's why America's great. It's not because of the competition per se. It's because everybody's allowed to do what they want economically. You're allowed to start any business you want, however you want, whenever you want. I mean, you'll file, maybe a LLC and fill out some paperwork every year, right? But beyond that, pretty much anyone's allowed to compete in the marketplace. But the key thing is, it's not competition that makes us great. It's freedom. And what I mean by that is this: you take a big business, right? They're not competing with one another. They are cooperating. If you want to know all the big innovations that humans have made, from ChatGPT to, the transistor, it all happens when many people come together to cooperate. It wasn't a bunch of independent contractors that were like, I'm going to do this all by myself, and they invented some world-changing thing. I mean, maybe the Wright brothers did that, but even then, it was two brothers collaborating, right? And I think they had a guy help them make the first engine because they needed to invent a new engine for their airplane, right? In order to truly change the world, right, you have to work with others. And so the highest form of freedom involves us voluntarily collaborating for the common good and not for our own. I'm going to say this again because it's that important. This does not mean that we do it involuntarily. And when I run for governor, and should I be elected by the grace of God, the goal is not for me to make you change your life. It's for me to offer you an alternative that is better than the life that you have today, and that you choose to voluntarily accept it. It's not a gift we're going to offer everyone. If you're homeless and broke on the street, we're not going to let you in the system, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take care of you. We're going to give you a place to stay and food to eat, okay? But you're not going to get to be a part of the system. The system is going to be for people who are responsible people. It's going to be a society of people who love to love one another, okay? The way I look at it is this: the people in the top 25% won't want to be in the system. The people in the bottom 25% won't want to be in the system. The top 25% of people won't want to be in it because they love to work. They work every single day and they want to get paid. They don't have to join the system. The people in the bottom 25% can't be in the system because it'll require you to be willing to give something back, and they won't be able to. So we'll put them on basic welfare, and we'll ask them to please live over here where you're not bugging all of us who are trying to work, right? Everybody else is going to do the system because the system will be better for the middle 50%, okay? You won't be forced to do it. I'm just saying, like, if you get offered $1 million, are you going to say no? The answer is obviously you will say yes, right? Because if someone is trying to improve your life, you're going to let them do it, okay? And that's what I'm doing, is improving your life. So the way that this is going to work is really easy, okay? There's going to be 3 steps to the economy. Number one is each of us is going to release our right to punish our neighbor for any form of theft whatsoever. That doesn't mean we won't have private property. It's important to have a system of accountability where each person says, this is the thing that I am accountable for. I will take care of it and make sure it's in good condition, and I will attempt to use it for the betterment of humanity, right? That's stewardship, not ownership. Stewardship is the correct attitude to have on this earth because none of us can own anything, right? If I owned something, that would imply that no one actually had the capacity to take it from me, right? But it's not true ownership if someone can take it from you, right? Ownership is an illusion. It's something that makes us feel good, but it's not real, right? It's just a feeling. And so when we start to tell the truth, which is that we don't own anything, that God is the one that made everything and he's the one that owns it all, what we do is we attempt to steward it in a wise way. And what being a steward is it means I don't own it, but it's my responsibility to take care of it and to make the best use of it as I can. In times past, the way we have stewarded our possessions is to throw people in jail or prison if they steal from us. We're not going to do that anymore. Instead, what we're going to do is create a system whereby we will all agree on the things that the average person has need of, and we will work together to make enough of them so that nobody wants to steal. For example, let's take a car. Right now, we make 50,000 brands of cars, and we make a new model every single year. Why? Because of capitalism. The goal is to sell more vehicles to make more money. It does work because at the end of the day, they do a little bit of innovation to beat their neighbor, right? The problem with it, however, is that it's stupid, right? I mean, if you stop and think about how idiotic it is, how much effort is spent making the brand new version of a car that's not substantially different, and most importantly, like, we have the Chevy Silverado, we have the Ford F-150, now we have the Cybertruck, we have the Toyota Tacoma or Tundra, we have the Honda, I don't even know what pickup Honda makes, but there's like a bazillion different brands of pickup truck, and they're all the exact same thing from a functionality perspective, right? One may look a little bit different, one may feel a little bit different, right? But functionally, they're all identical. And I understand maybe one of them has a little bit better reliability, but I'm saying from a day-to-day driving experience, right, it does the job. One may have more bells and whistles, but it doesn't matter, right? Why don't we stop as a society and be like, why are we making 5 different versions of the same thing? The reason why we do it is money, right? Because we have to make the money. So we literally reinvent the same thing 5 times. And that means the cost of the vehicle is substantially greater. Because we're doing way more work, right? We have to feed those people. So what has to happen is a different system. And the different system means that we have to have a way where we have a single pickup truck that we all work on together. We create the perfect design for a pickup truck that will last 10 million miles. I mean, if we all work together, we could make a pickup truck that literally lasts 10 million miles, is easy to repair, and is easy to upgrade. Right now, cars are designed to not be easy to repair, to encourage you to buy a new one. They're designed to break down because at the end of the day, if your vehicle lasts too long, why would you buy a new one? But that's because of the financial incentive, right? They have to keep making money and say, wow, I'm doing something good for society. So counterintuitively, the business that makes better cars may sell fewer of them because at the end of the day, they spend their money building a reliable vehicle that's a little bit more expensive up front, right? And it scares people, the price tag. Or maybe they make vehicles where they invest on the reliability and not on the bells and whistles, right? But they can't sell it as well, right? Because they aren't as good at marketing. They're more engineer focused, right? And so they cater to the demographic that is smart, right? But the average person can't tell, but one of them looks flashy. So they're like, ooh, pretty, right? And so the funny thing about it is, right, we waste this time. So when I become governor, we're not going to socialize anything. We're not going to force anyone to do anything. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a system where your basic needs will always be met, not by the state, but by your neighbor. And that's the difference. My job is not to control anyone. I'm going to make an app. I'm a programmer. I can probably make it myself in about a couple of months, right? And what the app is going to do is it's going to be the Love Your Neighbor app. And what you'll do is you'll open up your app. If you need some help, you post on there exactly what you need. There'll be categories and everything. Everybody will put on there what they're good at and how they can love their neighbor, and you post on there what you need, and everyone will go on the app and they'll say, yeah, I think this is good. Maybe somebody else will double check and say, yeah, that seems good. And then what will happen is somebody will come love you, and they will take care of you, and it will be free. And the cool thing is, if we have a nice app, we as humans will learn how to love our neighbors the easy way. We're going to use technology to make a new economy, right? It's a sharing economy. The Love Your Neighbor app will not be mandatory. You will not have to download it. If you hate iPhone apps, you don't have to do it. If you hate Android, you don't have to do it. But it is going to be the way that I think a lot of us want to function, right? The Love Your Neighbor app will mean that you join the system. You have to be someone who has demonstrated good character. You cannot be an idiot. You cannot be someone who hasn't done anything for the past 10 years except sit around and be a bum, right? If you want to join the system of Love Your Neighbor, you got to be a good neighbor. And someone's always going to say, well, what if somebody doesn't take care of me? What if I put in more work than them? Well, at the end of the day, then you can stop putting in that much work or do something that you want. The whole point of the Love Your Neighbor app is literally so that everyone can love their neighbor easily. It's about you if you want to love your neighbor. It's not about we're all going to love our neighbor so we'll get something. It's that we're all going to love our neighbors because that's how God designed life to be lived. So I always like to think about the example of the proverbial plumber, right? Who goes on there and he says, I can do any plumbing that you need. Here's how it works in capitalism, and this is why capitalism is not nearly so good as Love Your Neighbor. Capitalism, he has to spend time putting his name in the phone book. He's got to put his name all over the internet. He's got to pay for a web developer. He has to do Google ads or whatever AdWords. He's got to do some form of marketing. He's got to buy his truck. He's got to get his license. He's got to do all these things in order to make it work, right? And then once that's finally done, he has to go pay several percentage points to the payment processor, right? He's going to pay the taxes. He's going to pay his accountant, his CPA, right? By the time it's all said and done, right now he's going to pay taxes for his school system, income taxes for redistributive income. And by the end of the day, even though he charged a fortune for cleaning the toilet, or getting, the poop stuck out of it or whatever, he charged a fortune for it, but he still barely had enough, to eat dinner. And then we contrast that with the sharing system, right? The person says my toilet is clogged, and he texts back. He's like, well, why don't you just do, go do this, right? And then he sends over. We're gonna have a delivery system where he'll be able to send the correct tool over to the person's house. The person will go unclog their toilet, right? And that saves him like 5 hours of time, right? The plumber, because if you count all the advertising, marketing, driving, all the expenses and everything, right? He does it. He sends over the deal. The guy goes, fixes his toilet, takes 15 minutes. He sends the tool back or whatever. I don't know how he does that in a clean way, but whatever, he sends it back. And right. And then the plumber didn't have to do anything. And he can address the next question. The next guy's like, what do I do? My pipes are busted, whatever. And he tells him, well, all you got to do is go out front, use this tool, turn the knob, whatever, turn off your water supply. We'll get there in 15 minutes, right? He drives over there. He doesn't have to worry about the marketing. He doesn't have to worry about how much it costs, right? He's a good guy. He just takes care of his neighbor. They become friends. They like to hang out. They talk about baseball, they become friends. Their kids hang out. Like, they actually build a friendship, and they actually become like happy people because he literally just helped out his neighbor. And then what he does is he shows his neighbor, yeah, here's what I did. If it ever busts again, you can give me a call. But I mean, it's not that hard to do. This is what I did. And now the plumber is teaching other people how to do their own work, right? And that's way more efficient if you know how to do it yourself than having to call someone, right? So what we're doing is the opposite of capitalism. Capitalism is about make work, right? I like to think of like Nike. So Nike was really famous because the guy who made it was a genius. And, I read some book, it was called Born to Run. And the guy was like, you should run without shoes on. So, it is actually a lot of fun running without your shoes on. It feels a lot nicer without those giant weights on your feet. But what he talked about was how Nike created a market, right? They told everyone, like, you need to have these shoes. If you don't have shoes like this, you're going to get hurt and injured and whatever. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, we need to have these really padded Nike shoes. And then what his conjecture was that the padding on the shoes was actually worse for you, because he said it would change the way that you run and cause you to run in a way that was detrimental to your well-being. He said it would cause you to land on your heels instead of on your soles of your feet, right? And so the idea was, he said the guy created this entire market by advertising correctly. And I don't remember if if it's true or not. I don't know. I probably wasn't even around at that time. Nike's been around as long as I can remember. So I don't know if it's the truth, but the idea is the guy made everybody believe they need expensive running shoes, when the guy was basically saying it's actually worse for you to have running shoes on, right? It'll mess up your gait and you won't run like a normal human. It'll actually cause you worse problems in the end. I personally ran around barefoot, and I can testify that, I would run, 50, 60, sometimes. I mean, I probably went 70 plus miles some of the time. I used to run all the time when I was in high school, and I used to run with my shoes off, and I had so much fun. And I will definitely tell you that running with no shoes is the funnest way, and the most comfortable way to run. Once your feet get used to it and adjusted to it, it's just, nothing feels as good as running barefoot. And I will tell you guys this, running with no shoes is way more entertaining, because you get that tactile sensation. Running can get really, I hate to say this, but it's a boring thing to do after a while. But when you're running and you're feeling something on your feet, it's literally giving your brain sensation, right? Something besides, you're actually doing something. And so it makes running to be something that is less of a boring thing to do, right? I mean, I was, jogging because I wanted to run cross country for school. And so they always said that, the more miles you run, the faster you go. And so that's what I did. I found that running with my shoes off was a lot more fun than having shoes on. But what happened was, there was this whole marketing deal where we had what's called make work. A guy needed a job, so he built a business. He was a genius at people, so he persuaded everyone, you need this product, buy it. And the guy was like, well, actually, we have found that people are worse off having the product that they needed, right? If it wasn't for the money, would he have ever made Nike? It's hard to know. Maybe he would have. Maybe he really believed in it. But the whole bottom line is this, right? Nike's a cool company. I love them. I buy Nike stuff, so I don't have any problem with Nike. And I'm not an expert on human health. I don't know if having a heel strike first is a good or bad thing. But what I will tell you is this: Nike is a company that I think in the modern day exists to make a lot of income, right? They got shareholders, and that's their goal. And my question for people is this: is a company that's backed by shareholders ever going to be in the interest of the public? And the answer is, it's never going to be in your best interest to shop at a publicly traded company, because the publicly traded company's number one goal is to maximize return for shareholders. And what that means is, a lot of people put a lot of money into the company, so they want to get it back out, right? Some publicly traded companies are sort of still family owned, right? You take Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg still owns Facebook, right? So even though it is a publicly traded company, right, he's not going to be as greedy, most likely, as a truly shareholder owned company, where there's lots of people, right? Because he's already got billions of dollars. So why does he care if he makes another 50 or 100 billion, right? For a shareholder-owned company, though, it's a small business guy. He's not got a lot of money. He's really hoping his stock goes up. He really wants to make sure he votes for the guy at the shareholder meeting who's going to really increase his stock. Or it gets worse when it's the activist investor, right, who's like, we're going to fire the people that are doing public good, and we're going to make more and more money. And the problem is, at the end of the day, the legal system says that the shareholder wins the argument over the altruist. In other words, there cannot be a public good company that's traded on the stock market, because what will happen is somebody who's better with money will fire the guys who are trying to, do a service to humanity, and he'll replace them with the people that say, what we're going to do is we're going to maximize our income. And that's why capitalism can't function well. It's because ultimately it's a selfish-based endeavor. What I'm proposing to you is not a selfish-based endeavor, but a love-based endeavor. And that's why you can't force anyone to do it, right? Communism was the attempt to make everyone love their neighbor by killing people. Not surprisingly, it didn't actually turn out how they hoped. You do not teach people to love by hurting people. What we're going to do is the opposite. We are going to invite people into the system. Okay, if you're a good person and you want to volunteer and contribute, you'll be invited into the system. We are going to create new communities out in rural locations. Okay, you can continue to live in the city if you want to. Your house value may go up. It might not. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you this. We are going to create new communities out in rural areas. Everyone is going to get free acreage. You are going to get, at minimum, I would guess, a quarter acre for you and your family. You will be expected to farm on your own. Okay, that will be a part of your life. You will be expected to have trees that produce fruit. I am tired of seeing all these oak trees, You can see all this stuff behind me. Can I go back there and get fruit? I cannot, okay? You will be expected to be happy, okay? There is a fundamental biological human instinct that says, I need to plant plants. I need to see the flowers because that proves the plants are alive and they're going to make fruit, okay? There is a human instinct that you cannot be happy without growing your own food. It's weird, but you have to have your own food. It will not be enough food to feed your family on a quarter acre until we get really good at it. But eventually we can get it to where I think you would be able to feed your entire family on a quarter acre when we use technology correctly. And I'm not a farmer, I'm not an expert, but I know enough about my body size and I've seen enough cornfields to have a good estimation about how much corn you need to feed a person in a year, right? With technology, we can do like greenhouses and all this kind of stuff so that people can have an income the way that God designed income to be done. Right now, the way that we try to make money is I'm going to charge you for helping you, which is unfortunate, right? Because it's me versus you. It's a competition. The difference is this, right? Imagine I come over to your house and I'm like, I'm not going to charge you, but hey, this is how you build your plants better, right? Or grow your plants better. You're going to be happy because I have literally given you free stuff. What did I give you? Well, I gave you free advice, and you used your free advice to get literally the sun, right? The greatest solar energy instrument in the world, to work with a plant, more solar energy to produce what? Food, right? And this is not going to be a hobby. You're going to make enough food in your farm that you're going to have enough food for you and your family in a disaster scenario. Okay, that's the goal. What we're also going to create is we're going to create a national transportation system that's going to be a maglev. Okay, a maglev means magnetic levitation. It's a portmanteau. That means, I think it means you put two words together, right? Maglev, magnetic levitation. And what that means is we are going to have a system whereby if I want to ship something to my neighbor's house, whatever it is, I can ship it easily using a national transportation system. And part of us being a nation, as Texas, I've already talked about this, we are going to have to create a brand new society from a legal perspective, right? Because we can't do this with eminent domain and stuff like that, because the moment you start using eminent domain, you make enemies, okay? And when you make enemies, they will go vandalize stuff, okay? So we're going to make a system that is not done through eminent domain. If somebody doesn't want it to go through their property, we're not going to go around their property. We'll go like under their property, right? We'll just drill a tunnel underneath, right? But most people, I don't think, are going to have a problem with having a national delivery system, right? We'll have it run down the interstate highways. And so what that means is anybody will be able to send anything to anyone anywhere in Texas. And it'll be like having a mailman, except it's a machine that comes to your house at any time. Nobody's going to want to eat their produce raw, right? I mean, that's stupid. You're not going to want to eat your corn without cooking it, right? I mean, obviously vegetables you'll eat raw, but you know, a lot of food you want to cook, right? And so what we're going to have is we're going to have systems where, you know, at your house, you're going to cook the things that you enjoy cooking. You're going to eat what you enjoy, right? But we're going to have also a system where there's professional farmers that are doing things at a professional level, right? The average person, they're going to grow crops for a reason. You need your children to have something to do all day, right? Education is boring for children. They don't need to be sitting in school when we have ChatGPT. What they need to do is spend an hour or two hanging out with their friends in the presence of really smart adults. Parents are going to be expected to teach their children their skills. But not just that, we're going to have people hang out in the presence of the smartest adults in the community. We're going to have a lot of e-learning, right? It's not wise to have the smartest people teach the same thing 20 times. What we're going to do is we're going to take the foremost experts in every field. I like to talk about medicine because there's not enough doctors. You know, my dad is a surgeon. I believe he's probably one of the best, but I'm definitely a biased human because I think my dad's amazing. But I'm horrified by how difficult it is to become a medical professional. You know, and I talked to him about this. I said, Dad, how important is medical school? Because he spent his time working really hard on training residents at the medical school. And he said, if you just go through residency, you would be able to function as a doctor effectively. You don't actually need medical school to be able to function as a doctor. And I thought about that. I was like, what? Like, everyone says you need to go through all these years of education. And my dad was like, no, you can be a doctor just fine. You know, he said having that extra knowledge could help you in a situation that was outside the box, right? But from a day-to-day functioning, you'd be just fine as a doctor if you just did residency. And I thought about that, and you have to ask him. I mean, I'm just saying what I remember him saying. So you can talk to him, but at the end of the day, right, it makes sense to me, right? Learning how to operate to be a surgeon, that's a skill that you don't learn in medical school, right? You can go to school all you want, but you're not going to be a good surgeon until you take the time to practice cutting open a body and safely and carefully, surgically working through the issues that may arise as you do that, right? It just takes practice and skill. What you learn in medical school is general stuff about a body, right? And so realizing that, what we can understand is we don't actually need medical school. Like, medical school should be something you go to after residency, which is funny, right? You should go through residency so you learn how to practice and you can be a successful doctor, so that if there's a standard case, the guy has a tumor, whatever, you operate on it, you give him the chemo, you do whatever, and you're a functioning member of society. You do that for a couple of years, and then you want to go become a senior professional. Then you go to medical school and you learn about it in a whole different way. And I'll tell you something, if you go to medical school before residency, you won't understand what you learn. But if you go to residency and then medical school, it'll all make sense, right? We do everything backwards. So the way that we try to do it now is we try to start with the most general and abstract things, and then we drill down to the specific, right? But that's not how God teaches us, right? How does God teach you about matter? Does he have you read a text from Albert Einstein about the theory of relativity? Or does he say, this is matter? You will put something in your mouth and you will suck on it and you will get food into your body that will make you feel less bad, right? God is a God of action, right? He says we are going to move and we are going to do things, and that's how we are going to learn in this universe. Anytime that you begin doing theory instead of action, you run into issues. What should always happen is the people who do the theory are the most experienced people, right? You learn the theory of life as you grow older, right? First you learn the practice, and then you learn, right, why you did it. And the reason why we have to do it that way is because there's just not enough time for people to sit in school until they're 22 just to be able to go to residency, just to be able to go to medical school until they're 26, and then residency for another 6 years. That's a waste of human capital. It's extremely expensive and wasteful. So what we're going to have is a different system. We're going to have it to where when you're literally age 6 or 7 years old, you're going to take a simple test, okay? That test is going to tell you really and truly how good you are at solving problems, okay? If you're the best at solving problems, I've said this before, you're going to work in the government, okay? Because that is the biggest issue, okay? War is the single biggest problem that humans face. When humans are not working together, we are killing each other. That's the worst problem. So you're going to work in the government, learn how to avoid wars, learn how to keep the peace, okay? If you're a little bit less smart, right, maybe you would go into a medical profession, or maybe someone, somewhere around there would go into a really important engineering industry, right? But the reason why I say less smart is not because it's a pejorative thing, right? But when we say Usain Bolt is faster or slower than somebody else, that's simply accepting reality, right? If I want to say I'm faster than Usain Bolt, send me to the Olympics, right? Our country will be embarrassed because I'm not going to be as fast as, whoever the sprinter is. This just was never my gift in life. But I will tell you, if you're, doing the distance running, I'd like to go there and I'd like to help the best guys at least, train, right? I can run a 5K at maybe, the same pace that those guys could run like 2 marathons back to back, right? So I'll jog by them for that 5K while they're doing the marathon and help them out, right? It's ridiculous how talented some people are. But everybody's got that area. And I'm going to tell you the truth. So Google did a study on their employees, and they found that the top 1% of their employees did 20% of the work. So what that basically means, right, just back of the envelope calculations, is they're 20 times better programmers than the average, right? I mean, they're so much better, it's insane. Like their productivity, it's like they're worth 20 average people. And honestly, they're probably not worth 20 average people. They're probably priceless, because at the end of the day, the project probably couldn't have been done without them, because they're going to do the most difficult stuff. So it's not just about lines of code. It's, somebody has to be the genius that invents ChatGPT. Like, you can have 1 million people that don't know anything about coding. They're not going to invent it, right? It's that one dude who's smarter than all of us who figured it out, right? And so obviously there was a team of people helping and supporting in that effort, right? But that's how life is. You find that one thing you're good at, you can do it 20 times more efficiently than everybody else. So this is why we're not going to work for money. When you work for money, somebody hires you and is like, here, help me do this. And then you do it. But you didn't enjoy it, right? You had to get paid. Find the thing you're the best at, right? Because you always enjoy it because you're so much better than everyone else. Everyone is always saying thank you. And there's something that everybody is good at, right? But at the end of the day, some people's gifting and skill in life is going to be like public speaking, right? So they make millions of friends and have whatever they want. There's the other guy whose gift in life is like, I hate to say this, but there's some people whose gift in life is like, they know it needs to be done to keep the house looking good, right? So that person may be tempted to feel like they're less important, which is why we have to have an egalitarian system that says, even if you're the public speaker and you make millions of dollars being the governor, right? Because you are so famous, you have to be the one last in line for everything, right? That's how I think it should be. I think the governor should be last in line for everything. I think as long as there's one person in prison, the governor should be sitting in prison with that person. Not as a punishment to the governor, but so that the governor will always say, you know, I will work to make sure that everyone can get into a place where they can be treated well, you know? And I say that because I believe prison to be a form of torture. It's one thing, you know, maybe people are having trouble, behavioral issues, they need to go live in a separate place, but it needs to be a humane environment where they can live and work and have a family. If someone wants to be with them, right? They need to have enough freedom to live a healthy life, even if they've done something bad, because we can't judge people. Judgment means I'm better than you. I know better than you. And Jesus said the moment we start judging, it's actually the proof that we're worse than the people that we're judging. It's really funny that he said that, right? He said, why do you see the speck in your brother's eye and don't pay attention to the plank in your own eye, right? Our goal should be to bring peace in every situation. Peace means that we help people apologize and say they're sorry. So what I want to do is I would like to change the way that the system functions and the way that the system works by creating an economy that's based on sharing. No one will be obligated to participate in it. You can go back to the Federal Reserve and work for money, but I can guarantee you everybody who joins the sharing economy, once you get in, you can't get out. It's addictive. It would be like going from communism to capitalism. Once you come to a capitalist country, right, who's going to go to the communist one? And that's going to be the case, right? People are going to join it. And, you know, there's always going to be the guys at the top who's like, I'm flying my private jet. Look at you losers, you know? But at the end of the day, you know what? We'll all be saying the same thing. Yes, you're flying your private jet, charging everybody millions of dollars for everything. And yes, you're a genius. But at the end of the day, I've made so many friends and I've had so much fun taking care of people and loving them. I wouldn't trade it for the world, right? And there's always going to be the poor guys on the bottom line who are like, I'll never help anyone but me, right? And they can't get in. In order to get admitted, you have to demonstrate you're a good person. Because the system doesn't work when people are going to be a drag and they're not going to help out. And we're not going to kick you out. Once you get in, right? So we're going to make the way to get in to be a process that is not to prove you're a good person, but instead a process so that if you follow the steps, you become a good person, right? So the goal is not to test your character, but instead it is to help you develop good character, right? I think right now we would say, you know, if you've been paying taxes for the last 5 years, you're probably a helpful human, right? If we look at your tax return, you know, if you're, you know, maybe mentally ill, whatever, we're not going to put you in the system. We're going to put you on welfare. And that means we're going to treat you differently. You're not going to get to live in the nice houses that we all live in, but you're going to have housing. And you're going to be treated like a human and given dignity, but you're going to be given basic housing so that you will have an incentive, right? We always want an incentive for you to want to get your life together and do things to prove that you have become a good person, right? And join the rest of us taking care of one another and loving each other. And here's the thing. I believe it's dangerous to say these kinds of things unless I qualify it like this. I don't actually care if I live in a house or not. I really enjoy air conditioning, but at the end of the day, that's not the problem, right? What I care about is are people getting hurt, right? I don't care if we live in a mansion or honestly a portable home. Like, it doesn't matter. What I care about is making sure that everybody has a place that they can go to sleep at night, you know? And once we do that, fine. We'll all build ourselves 2-acre estates. Like, it doesn't matter, right? We'll get there. With the sharing economy, we'll get there 10 times faster than capitalism ever could. We'll probably be building hovercraft and all this stuff because we're not going to compete. Everybody's going to like look on the app. They're going to be like, I want to build a hovercraft. And then they go on the app and they see all the people who've been working on the hovercrafts, all their designs. and everybody who wants to help will be able to contribute. And there's always that part of us that's like, oh my gosh, it's my secret, my idea, I want to do it by myself, and that's valid. But we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to all work together, and we're going to give away these ideas for free. We're going to do what Elon Musk tried to get us to do with OpenAI. We're going to give away the best secrets to everyone so that we can find true happiness, which is living a life that is worth living, right? You don't live forever, but if you live a good life, right, you don't have to, right? You had some kids and you left a legacy of love. So I'm going to close out this video with one last thought, right? Jesus said this: you've heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you not to resist the evil man. And to not resist the evil person means that if someone steals from you, right, you don't steal it back, right? So that's why we're going to do this system. We're going to make a system so that there's enough cars, so that there's more than enough for everyone. So no one will ever steal a car again. You won't have to have a lock in the ignition, because we will make low-cost cars that are basic but functional, and you won't need to have a police force fixing theft of cars, right? The same goes for human biology. Every society up to now has pretended like sex is not necessary, and that's why wars happen. I personally believe that most wars happen because males really want to find a girl they can't, and they want to prove themselves by going to battle or something like that, right? Their body says if you kill some other guys, then you can have their woman. Like, that's why guys go to war. That's why guys do really stupid stuff. And so we're going to have a national system whereby everyone is going to be given the opportunity to find someone to marry by the age of 15. And if they can't, the state's going to step in and it's going to help out. Nothing's going to be mandatory, but we're going to help people that don't know how to talk to each other to find someone. It's kind of funny, but studies show that genetic variation is better for population. So, you know, they could take, for example, a genetic test and find someone very genetically different than them, right, to ensure that their children have a great chance at you know, genetic superiority to the rest of us. And I know that with CRISPR, all that's going to change because now we're able to edit human biology anyways. But everyone should have the right to have a spouse, right? A lot of people are like, is being gay a sin? I'm like, well, I'm not going to judge a woman if she's in love with a female. But at the end of the day, like, you know, that means that there's two guys who may not be gay that, you know, they need a woman, right? You cannot get pregnant without someone who's opposite, right? And if they want to start a family, is being a lesbian in that instance, if there's two guys, they're like, we need a wife, hey. And they're like, well, we fell in love, sorry, tough luck. You know, is that really the most loving thing to do, right? And so a lot of people say, well, I'm not hurting anyone by being a millionaire. Okay, you're not hurting anyone by being a millionaire, but you're driving prices up. And because you're driving prices up, right, you're at the top of the curve. Someone else is going to have to do the dirty work that you don't want to do, right? So the goal is to have an economy where we are not just saying, well, I didn't hurt anyone. Capitalism is like, I didn't hurt anyone. Okay, fine, you didn't hurt anyone, but your behaviors, by collecting and hoarding money, you put yourself at the top, so all the other people have to clean your toilets and do all the dirty work that you didn't want to do. That's not fair to them. So that's why we're going to have the top 25% that's better than the rest of us. They can do that, and we can go help them, but you know what? We may charge them a little bit, right, for our effort. But it's going to change everybody's life forever, I think, once we realize this, right? The economy has to be based on forgiveness. Jesus said, if you don't forgive people that hurt you, then God will not forgive you for hurting other people. Or, I don't know, maybe hurting God's feelings. I don't know if that's possible, but some people say you can hurt God by, you know, not talking to him or not praying in the morning. Some people think it hurts God's feelings if you don't talk to him all day. I don't actually know. I'm not God. I've never seen him before. But I will tell you the truth, okay, that you can hurt people. And the Bible says when you hurt people, there will come a time when you get hurt. And so it actually hurts people. People don't know this. If you become, like, I'm just going to say, I think that when two women get together, I think it is a hurtful thing, because there's a guy there's a guy that wants to have a wife and he cannot, because the girl was like, well, I'm my own person. I have my own body. I don't have to take care of someone else. And there's what's called the sin of commission and the sin of omission. The sin of omission means there's a baby screaming there and you decide not to feed the baby. That's a sin because you hurt the child by not doing the thing that you needed to do. And I think a lot of times in our economy, we see a poor person on the side of the street and we don't realize it is a sin of omission when we see that poor person and we don't work to help that person out. And so we have to help that person because of the golden rule. Treat others how you would want to be treated. When we don't do that, what happens is justice comes around and we find we got robbed or our tax bill was a little bit higher than we thought, right? These things don't happen by accident. It's because somebody's going to take care of that person, and that person is going to charge you for it on your tax bill, right? It's not magic. It's not karma. It's just reality, right? Somebody's going to do the work. But if you do it right, then it's a lot cheaper because, you know what, we didn't have to have 50,000, organizations and grants and all this business with tons of administrators, right? It's cheaper if you just do the work yourself. So the sharing economy is literally the cheapest economy that can exist, where we all just do the work ourselves, and it means that when we need someone to help us with the plumbing, the plumber may be like, dude, it's so easy. Just get your hands dirty. It'll take like 2 minutes and then you're done. You learn how to take care of yourself. That's the fun thing about the sharing economy. You will have more fun. They've done like studies on this, right? When you have people work different jobs at work, they're happier. You can't just pigeonhole people, and don't pigeonhole yourself. That's not to say you have to do it. Everybody's got a gift, right? But leave the difficult plumbing jobs to the experts, right? We can all know how to fix a toilet, right? But what's actually going to happen, I'm going to tell you the truth, is we're going to invent toilets that just don't clog. I mean, that's the facts. We're going to invent plumbing that works 10 times better, because when you get paid to repair the broken stuff, why are you going to put in great stuff if that's your job? You're not. But once the plumbers realize, like, shoot, all I have to do is do a great job the first time and I never have to go back, right? That's why the sharing economy will win every time, because people will work to get the job done. They'll never work to create more work, right? Like I talked to one of my teachers and she was like, I hired the guy to fix my air conditioner, and basically he said it was going to be like $2,000 to like fix it or whatever. And so I hired a second opinion, and the second guy was like, it's $100. And by the way, this guy literally physically broke something just to like literally physically break it so he would have an excuse to replace it, right? Nobody's going to do that in the sharing economy because they're not working for money. They're working because they want to take care of someone. And I'm going to tell you the truth, and this is it. This life was not made for you. It was made for somebody else, okay? We are transient beings on this planet. It lasts much longer than we do, okay? But you were designed to love, okay? You were designed to learn a few lessons and then go be with Jesus. I mean, that's what I believe as a Christian, and you don't have to agree with me, but at the end of the day, I ask you to listen, because I think regardless of whether you believe in Jesus or not, I think we can all agree that love is the only thing that gives meaning to life. And I want all of us to choose to love one another, to love our neighbor, to love our enemy. And when people commit crimes against us, we need to say, how can we fix the system so they won't want to do it? It's how the FAA does it, right? How can we fix the system so that people don't want to hurt one another? Instead of saying, how can we punish people to dissuade it? Because I think ultimately everyone wants to have a happy life, and we know that never happens when we fight. And so ultimately when we do this, I think crime is not going to be an issue ever again. I think people are just going to learn how to be happy. And we're going to have government administrators and officials to get involved when people are getting out of hand before things get bad, so we can take them to special places, like maybe on vacation, or take them out to the racetrack so they can go really fast and get their testosterone going or whatever, and everyone can be happy. So that concludes this video. I love each and every one of you. I ask you to please consider voting for me for governor. My name is Hans Truelson. The best thing you can do is like these videos and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, I bless you, God bless you, and may Jesus bless you with all of his love. That's it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.